What are some tips and strategies that you can use to improve your abilities to mentor your students and help them have the kinds of career and experiences that they want in academia? That's coming up in this video. Hi everyone, I'm Leigh from teachingacademia.com, and I'm all about giving you the tools you need to navigate academia to make your best impact. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you get notifications because I put out new videos every week. So today's video, I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Chyllis Scott from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and Dr. Diane Miller from the University of Houston downtown. And they're going to be talking about two things. So the first and foremost, they're going to be talking about mentoring, and they're going to be talking about their ideas, their challenges, their struggles, and their tips for how to be a very good supportive mentor and help your students grow and flourish. But as an added bonus, they're also going to be talking about how they recently got an article on mentoring published and how that sort of came about in a very serendipitous manner. So join us for this really exciting and informative video. All right, so thanks for joining us. I'm really excited today. We have Dr. Diane Miller and Dr. Chyllis Scott.
I'm like, wait.
Diane is an assistant professor of literacy at the University of Houston downtown, and Chyllis is an assistant professor also of literacy, but going up for tenure right now. And that's probably a completely separate discussion.
Yes.
At the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. They've written this great article, Stories of a Transformative Mentorship, Graduate Student Glue, and it's published in the International Journal of Mentoring and Coaching in Education. And they are going to talk to us a little bit about their article and a little bit about mentoring and how they understand it in general. So thank you very much, Diane and Chyllis, for joining us today.
Thank you for asking us. This is fabulous.
So I'm wondering if we can just sort of start with one or both of you helping everyone understand how you two know each other, what your relationship is, how you came to write this piece on mentoring.
Chyllis, you want to tell the story or you want me to?
Sure, I'll start and you'll probably fill in like you do with everything else on my writing. Well, as in many people and colleagues of ours that start doctoral programs, there's usually a class called Intro to Doctoral Studies that everyone has to take. Usually the goal is that you take it in your first semester, and sometimes our colleagues take it in their last. But Diane and I both took it our very first semester. She was coming up from Houston to College Station at A&M, and I had just moved from Central California to College Station, and it was our very first class together, and we just happened to be sitting at the same table and started talking about where we were from. I remember her asking me what I did beforehand and having a conversation about my salary in California. It was one of the biggest things. Diane's like, really? That was like the big thing that like we just started talking in that class, and that would be the elevator speech of how we met, and then where our relationship went from there was, where we are now, huge and moving forward. So I don't know, Diane, what do you want to add?
Well, we may have started off on equal footing in that class together, but I was a non-traditional student. Chyllis mentioned I was driving in from out of town. Chyllis took a little bit more traditional route, and so she was full-time on campus and those kinds of things, and that's when our footing started to become different very quickly. She sped ahead of me. And she graduated a full year before I did. And so that kind of changed the balance of power a little bit. And she became more of the trailblazer, and I just kind of followed along.
So how does mentoring then factor into this? How did you both get to this point where you're going to talk about mentoring and write about mentoring?
I think the big thing for both of us is that we had a junior faculty as our dissertation advisor / chair, and we both had someone that we got to know and respected. And the way that she mentored is similar to what we both do now. And it's building that community and building relationships maybe with everybody within that group, in that advisor group, or with individuals in the group. And I think that that's the big thing, is where our chair, Dr. McTighe, realized what she had in the people that she was advising, and that she couldn't do it all. I mean, I think she at one point, as a fifth year professor, had, 6 or 7 of us. And so her way of putting us together with others in our group, and myself mentoring or working with Diane, and myself mentoring and working with other first year students in my last year. I think that just is a big step of where mentoring, maybe we didn't see it. I don't think we knew it, even going through it, until I had actually, my last year, and Diane and I started working a lot more closely together because our dissertations were a similar style. And so I had already been through a process, and McTighe was like, well, why don't you help with Diane? And so it became much more of an official assignment, but I didn't see it. I just see it as a peer relationship friendship, but most people would call it mentoring because it's something that I've already been through and I had already experienced, and I was then helping her. And Diane and I, we definitely see it differently because we have our own stories, but they also are very similar in a way, I think.
It's interesting in reflecting back on the way things progressed, in that hindsight, very clear hindsight position. She was using the gradual release model with us. I mean, she was modeling for us and explicitly showing us how to do it by mentoring us. And then she was helping guide us through things. And then she says, now you try it on your own. And looking back on it, it really followed that arc very well.
Mm-hmm.
So you had this really interesting experience where, and I think it's a really good point too, where you had an advisor who said, I cannot be everything for you. Mm-hmm. And in some cases that might be practical, right? It could be, there's 7 of you or 10 of you, and I can't be everything to everybody. But I remember my advisor saying the same thing to me, that she said, you need to find at some point a writing group. So that you guys can help and support each other, because she said, it's not good for me to be the only person that's constantly giving you feedback on your writing. You need to hear, I can't be the be all end all. I'm not everything. And I think that's important for people to know, that even if you have a really strong, good advisor who's a really good mentor to you, that sort of being selective and thoughtful and mindful about that, about who else can fill particular niches, be it other faculty members or other doctoral students, that you don't want to just be up with just one person all the time. And the other interesting thing that I like about what your advisor did was, like both of you said, this gradual release of responsibility. She taught you how to mentor, right?
Very true.
And that's not a normal thing, I think, that most people get to experience. So that's pretty cool. So, like people that are watching, I think that's definitely something to think about if you're in our shoes where you're professors, right? How do I help my students get a variety of support? And then also, how do I help them think about how to give support to others?
And it's a different kind of support. Obviously, we may get into this later about the peer-to-peer kind of dynamic. There is a less formal level than what the advisor has to maintain. And so that was helpful to have that mentorship coming from 2 different kind of stances.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about your article. You've got this concept of glue as a metaphor, graduate student glue, and you've got in there the 3 P's of glue: purpose, planning, and positivity. So can you talk a little bit about why you view mentoring or graduate student mentoring as this role of glue, right? This idea of glue, and these 3 P's and what they are, and how people might think about this concept in their mentoring practices.
Well, go ahead.
The glue thing was a surprise to Chyllis. It actually came out in the bowels of the auditorium when I was graduating. And after she deposited me there and guided me through all those hallways to find out where we were supposed to get dressed and line up and all of that, she introduced me to people standing in front of me and behind me and all that kind of stuff in line. And she seemed to know everybody. And we all just started talking. How do we know Chyllis? How do you know Chyllis? How do you know Chyllis? And that's what we decided, that she had glued us all to the experience. And so that word started kind of, percolating a little bit in my head. And then Chyllis and I went for a walk right before she left town after my graduation. And this just kind of came out of it. We talked about what has been worthwhile in our relationship and really deconstructed it in a way that was very interesting for a peer-to-peer relationship. Chyllis, what are you going to?
Well, and like she said, I knew nothing about this, but I was sitting in the stands. I was already actually working in Las Vegas at the time when she graduated. So we had this like kind of pact thing that I would fly back for her graduation and go, and I'm sitting in the stands with her family, everyone, and I'm like crying because I'm like, these are all my friends that behind me. But then we went for the walk like the next day or something, and she's like telling me the story about everyone sitting, because I knew everybody is like they were part of our program. And so it was just interesting when we started talking about it. So we of course went back to her house and like jotted some notes down, and then I flew home, and I think I worked on it on the plane because that's how we are. And I wrote back and said, here are my ideas. Now, what are your ideas? And that's just where it went. And thinking about like, you know, you have these ideas with any, you know, research or publication or project, but it's the whole idea of we're not writing this just for us. What is the research component? Could we publish, and where could we publish? And I think that also shows the similarities and differences in what we do now, as in like she's at University of Houston downtown and has a 3 or 4 teaching load. It changes every semester. It's a lot. It's a lot. And where UNLV is at a research level, and I have a 2-2. And so there are different even exchanges in our responsibilities. So even at that time of 4 years ago when we started this, we already looked at that of how could this piece help those that are looking to continue to do a lot of teaching and have a heavy teaching load, or those that are doing research, and fit it in both directions. So, and you have to understand that Diane loves alliteration. And so, and it's a compliment, Diane, that we always have those kind of things, but it came out in both of our dissertations, and it wasn't a purpose, it was how things came out. So when we did this, we needed something that would transfer our narratives and our stories, but also transfer to others who, like yourself, Leigh, who would be reading it, or, you know, what is the value or importance of an article like this? And we were excited about it. We just kept working on it, and this was the first journal we submitted it to, and they liked it and gave us good feedback.
So what I'm liking about this discussion too is it's really talking about how you even got to conceptualizing this. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like the two of you said, we want to write an article on mentoring. Let's sit down and figure out how we're going to do this. It just sort of bubbled up in the moment, right? And you took advantage of it and you ran from there. And I think it's a really nice example of there will be times when you're very purposeful about you want to write an article about X, and you know who you want to write it with, and you come together. And then there's other times where it's more serendipitous, and it happens, and you sort of grab it and take that opportunity and go from there. So it's really interesting to hear.
Those kind of words kept coming up in our writing process: serendipitous, organic, authentic, just kind of emerging from our practice. And I guess we started trying to be like researchers. You know, we were very young in our careers so far. I'm still younger than Chyllis is, but okay, so if we're going to spend time thinking about this, what can we do, like Chyllis was saying, to make it more palatable and useful for another audience?
So do you have advice for people that are, you know, they're just starting out in their careers, they want to be good mentors to, you know, their students, be it doctoral students, master's students, undergrad, they just want to be a good mentor? What advice, what would be like the one takeaway that you would give them besides read my article, which we'll link to?
Oh, wow.
We thought about 2 different audiences. You know, we kind of wrote this thinking about making very transparent the process that a senior faculty member could follow and think about. I can see how it would be very easy. I don't mentor doctoral students. We're a teaching university, so I don't have that. But I see Chyllis doing it. But it would be very easy to think about all of your advisees in silos, and to think about, you know, there's this one over here doing this project, there's this one doing this project. And looking back on it, it was a very efficient decision for our advisor to make, to link us together. Chyllis had done things like, she found somebody at the medical school library who specialized in the type of methodology that we were doing for our dissertations. She sought that out. So she was gaining knowledge separate and beyond what our advisor was giving us about the methodology. So it was actually an efficient decision for her. Looking back on it now that we're in professor positions, we're going, oh, wow, that was really smart of her to do that. I wonder if she did that intentionally. So there's that audience, but then there's the audience of that first year doctoral student. Mm-hmm. being open to the possibilities of being led from all different directions and just really seeking that out. And because it's a scary thing. You know, I was that non-traditional student, and I didn't go to the brown bag lunches. I was working all day long. You know, I didn't go to the graduate, group that Chyllis was so involved in. But I was open to the expertise that she was offering from that too. I don't know, Chyllis, what do you think, an audience?
Well, I just think about one takeaway as well is Diane and I continue to work together even now, and mentoring is one of my research lines. And many people, you know, at first were like, well, you're assistant professor in literacy. Why are you doing mentoring? And I was like, well, it's important. Like, there's a need, because I came in here 5 years ago and there seemed to be a gap between what research was being done with doctoral students and what advising was being done with doctoral students. And I felt like, now I was no expert in what I was doing in the mentoring, but I had good preparation and I had good training, and I had continued align with my other peers and with my other colleagues. And so I think the takeaway for me is, I always say that I was one of the most selfish junior professors that came in, because I sought out all doc students and said, I need writing group. I need support. I'm not looking to work with you if you don't want the help in that area. I just need someone to sit down and write at the same time I'm writing, for accountability. And I think the biggest thing is, you know, if it's junior faculty, or if it's faculty, or if it's doc students and masters and undergrads. I mean, I've done research with all of them, but it's finding just those people that can help hold you accountable. And my whole first year and Diane's second year, we actually did a virtual, just like earlier, we did a virtual hangout every week, just to recap what our projects were, where we were at in our writing, what was going out, what was coming in, and how our mentoring was going, because I already had doc students coming in the door and she had undergrads. So we started, actually, she's worked with my doc students and I've worked with her undergrads. And we continue this process of mentoring, you know, whether the project is relevant or if we're just helping up here and that kind of thing. So my thing is accountability, but it's also, you know, working with individuals on writing or projects that can make you better.
Yeah, it sounds like a thread that I hear is empowering your students, right? If you're in the role of mentor, some of your students will naturally be that way. Like Chyllis, it sounds like you might have naturally been that way, right? Where you're like, I'm going to go to the med school and I'm going to seek out people. But if your students that you're mentoring, if that's not how they are, right? Or if you're a faculty member and you're mentoring an assistant professor and that's not how they are, then sort of helping them find that voice, right? So where they're taking charge of who they want to be and seeking out the tools and the people and the resources beyond, you know, just this is my mentor kind of a thing. And then the other thing that I hear you both talking about is that accountability, right? That you are setting goals for yourselves, or you're helping each other set goals, and you're being very clear about what you need and where you need help to reach those goals. And so to me, that's a really important thing that's come up as well.
You know, as I was rereading the article, I was highlighting lines that I liked and trying to ignore the couple of comma errors that I found that somehow still made it into publication, and I'm just not going to think about those. But there was one line under the positivity part that said, empty praise does not engender progress. And so it's very important to be open to that very meaningful praise and critique, and not just looking for your back to be patted, because sometimes that's not what I needed from Chyllis. I didn't just need the pat on the back. I needed her to tell me to, you know, pull my head out of wherever and get to work. Get to work. Yes.
So Chyllis, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to add here?
I mean, when it comes to mentoring or even supporting, I also, similar to what Erin did with us, is we can help scaffold and support in any way in having accountability or writing groups. But I've tried to gradual release and mimic what Erin did with us. And I now have my doc students either working with early doc students or other students in our program to support them, because I can't do it all either, and I see someone else's strength. So I think the big thing and another takeaway would just, you know, if you have a weakness, find someone who has that as a strength and play it up as much as you can and work together. But the other thing is if that relationship doesn't evolve and become that good working relationship, it is okay to be professional and step away. And I know in, reading your work, I've seen that and heard that. So it's, I think it's just, we need to find what's best for us, but sometimes being outside your comfort zone is not a bad thing either.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us about mentoring, coaching, and also I feel like we got a little bonus here because we got to hear about how this article came to be. And it was really nice to sort of hear how it bubbled up and was this really, serendipitous thing that you were able to take advantage of. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes to your article, which is on ResearchGate. So anybody that doesn't have an account with ResearchGate, you just need to make an account. It's free, and then they should be able to access your article that way, right? Once they make an account.
Or they can email us if they can't get it.
Okay. And so your emails, we'll talk about that afterwards. May or may not be in the show notes depending on what you want. But the link to the article will definitely be there in ResearchGate. So thank you very much for participating and taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation, Leigh.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all of my videos. And while you're at it, head down to the comment section and let's talk about mentoring, right? What questions do you have about what it takes to be a good mentor? What are some tips and tricks that you have for mentoring, right, that other people can benefit from? Head down to the comments, let's discuss and help each other move forward with our academic journeys.